Hello, back from Peru. The girl's back. Oh, I was just watching the video I made before I went to Peru, just to kind of remind myself of the things that I'd said. And one of the things that I did say was I was going to attempt to do some recordings out there, but that didn't really happen. And it's okay that it didn't happen as well. I'm just kind of processing it right now whilst I talk to you. I just didn't feel like there was any urge from me to make any videos or, yeah, like even to be honest, to be using my phone. I rarely used it. I only probably connected to Wi-Fi a couple of times, even though there were more opportunities to do that. Um, and I didn't take as many pictures and I didn't make that many videos, as in just general tourist kind of videos. So, yeah, I think it was kind of subconsciously somewhere I wanted to probably disconnect from using my phone, and that's what played out in the world. And yeah, that was fine. And anyways, I'm back from the trip of a lifetime, and there's so much to say about it. I think what I really want to mention is my state of mind, particularly when I was on the Inca Trail and camping overnight en route to Machu Picchu, which took 3 days in total, 3.5 actually, because we didn't get there until the fourth day. And yeah, I when I look back at that time, there are parts of it that I'm really proud of in terms of doing something like that. For me was a huge, huge challenge, and the fact that I managed to do it and didn't back out, persevered, pushed through. Though those bits are definitely the highlights for me. However, there was a part of me that came out that I think it was unexpected. I knew it was going to be hard physically, mentally, but I don't know. I didn't anticipate how I was going to be, and I think when you're doing something that's completely out of your comfort zone, it's quite a normal thing to happen. But when it's happening to you, or even after, like when you're reflecting on it, you're kind of like, wow, I really didn't expect that to play out like it did. And I guess what I need to kind of explain here is my state of mind. As I said, like I there was a lot of internal talk going on, which, to be honest, it wasn't even talk, because I think what I need to say is, like, obviously this is a process and it's going to take time for me to kind of explain how I operate as a person. But one thing that happens is that I don't tend to have a constant chatter in my mind. Like that ego, the side of the ego that's basically telling you that you can't do this and you can't do that. That's not normally how my internal ego is operating. I'd say it's more like a feeling. It's more of it's going on at a level that isn't being verbalized inside, but I know it's going on because of how I'm approaching situations. And what was happening was I was approaching things, I would say, from when I was doing this trek from a negative point of view, but there wasn't this talk in my head going, you can't do this, just breathe, you're not going to get to the top of. On the second day, there's a point that's called Dead Woman's Pass. It's quite aptly named, because you do literally feel quite dead. Well, some people may be feeling full of energy, but I certainly wasn't. Um, yeah, I was experiencing a negative energy. And I was talking to my husband about this actually, and I think he helped me kind of, because as an outsider looking in and seeing how I was being, he helped me kind of see it from a different perspective. And yeah, I approached. I guess what was happening was I was hitting a wall. I think that's the best way to describe it. And the wall was basically this kind of energy, this negative energy field, which was, I don't think, all the things like it. I'm going to verbalize it now, but it wasn't chatter in my head that was going on at the time. It was literally just this feeling of, I don't think I can do this anymore. And this is beyond my capabilities, physically and mentally. However, when I would stop and take breaks, physically I felt fine. But it was once I started in trying to get back into a rhythm and get into my groove, then I guess it was more the mental side that started kicking in. As I'm saying, like, it wasn't an internal chatter, but it was just this negative energy of not feeling like as if I would be able to do this thing. And a version of me that I've been trying to work really hard on over this last year. And I guess the unexpected element of it was I thought I would have approached that negative feeling differently, and that I would have found strategies and approaches to overcome that feeling that I was carrying with me. But that didn't happen. And instead, I think the only thing that I was capable of doing on this trek when I was really struggling was just plodding along. Like, there was no part of me that was going to be able to analyze anything that was going on, because I physically and mentally didn't have the capacity to do any of that. And like, as I'm talking about it out loud now, I'm realizing that when you're completely at the most, how do I put it, at the most kind of edge of, not edge of your comfort zone, but when you're completely like in at the deep end, I guess, it's interesting what plays out. It's interesting how you approach the situation and how you carry yourself as a person. I think that was the unexpected thing for me. Because when I've, this time that I've been able to, be privileged to have and work through things that I clearly needed or wanted to work through, I've had space, like mentally I've created space and physically I've created space in order to work on these things. But then on that trek, when I was thrown in at the deep end, for me, it was my very deep, deep, deep end. All that space had gone. There was no space. There was literally, like, the perception was that there was no space for me to work through any of that. And I was going back to just literal basic needs from a human perspective. So, like, telling my leg, come on, lift up, put your foot on that step that's in front of you. You can, you need to lift your leg. So it's more like I was just giving myself instructions internally, I think. Anyways, that's what was going on. Or another thing that happened was I needed to really focus on my breathing, which has its good side, and I guess not so. It's not that it wasn't a good side of it, but I guess because I was so focused in my breathing, I wasn't really able to do much else. So the good side was that I didn't really suffer from altitude sickness, and I think that's because I was regulating my breathing a lot more by focusing on it. But I was so focused on my breathing that I wasn't, again, as I said, able to give myself space to do much else. So it was literal like brain instructions to the body to get it to do what I needed it to do in order to get through this trek. And breathing, that was the only things, like when I was really struggling, those were the only things that I was capable of doing, and there was no space of analyzing what's going on here and who's showing up in this situation, which part of me is showing up in this situation. And when I look back on it now, what I've come to understand is that this is a version of me that I thought I had worked on and I thought I had moved on from, but she was definitely there and she was definitely present. And that version, if I just describe who she is as a person, she's someone that is, there's good sides to her, and I guess there's sides that I don't particularly like about her. So she's someone that feels the need to keep pushing, to keep going. And that's obviously a good thing, but I think sometimes she pushes too much to the point where she's not really listening to herself, listening to her body and what her body wants. It's more what the external world expects of her. And so I was feeling the need to keep up with the rest of my group sometimes, as opposed to being happy with where I was at and perhaps taking a bit more time to work through the bits that I was struggling with. So I just kept on pushing, rather than just enjoying the process. I think it was more like, let's get to the end. We just need to keep going with this. We need to just keep going because we need to get to the end. And there was an element of fear as well from this version of me, of if I stopped, perhaps I won't be able to complete the day or complete it at a pace that I find acceptable. So yeah, she was also someone who wasn't really taking in, like being present. She wasn't really taking in where she was, what she was doing, how she was doing it. Yeah, she was just not present at all, I would say. I can't believe, like, this is the first time I'm thinking about it and talking about it, and I think the realization is also hitting me right now. Yeah, she wasn't present. And yeah, like I said, that's something that I've tried to work on really hard, and wanting to be less stuck in the past or less stuck in the future and just be more in the moment and be happy with where I'm at, happy with the pace that I'm going at, happy with what I'm doing, how I'm doing it. And yeah, I don't, like I said earlier, there was no part of me that was really stopping, not necessarily physically. I'm saying, like, it's not a case of having to stop and take it in, but that could have helped if I did do that more. No, this is more just like, as you go through life, you can still be, have that level of awareness of you're taking in your environment, you're taking in what's happening both externally and internally. And I lost that ability to really do that. And yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of disappointing that I wasn't able to bring the Just Breathe version of me that has been going through some growth and working on this, being in the moment more. But I'm not going to beat myself up about it, because I think that version of me that turned up at the trek, you know, she's still very much a part of me. And it was, you know, it was a moment of realization, actually. And I guess right now, because thinking about it more now, that she's always going to be a part of me. She's never going to detach herself from me, because she is me. She was someone that was very much who I was, and has the capability of being me right now as well. You know, if I allow her to turn up, that can be me in the present as well. And I guess, yeah, when I'm thrown in a very deep level, there's a certain, there's a certainty around that she will show up. And I guess it's about me being more conscious of that and being prepared to either allow her to be there and accept her for who she is, and love her for who she is, and thank her for who she is, or, this choice I have to actually go, I don't want to be that person in this moment. I actually want to be the person that I'm learning to grow into in this moment, and welcome those areas of growth in that moment, if you see what I mean. I think it's hard to talk about this, actually, without becoming so abstract about it. I hope this is making some kind of sense. And obviously, if it isn't, or if you've got questions about this, then I'd love to hear your thoughts and your questions. But yeah, I just wanted to really unpick that particular time of my trip, which I think I have, and hopefully that's made some kind of sense. So there's been, obviously, as you can tell, there's been a lot of learning that occurred, and the intense learning that occurred during the trek for me. And it's something that I'm continuing to learn from, even though the trek has passed and it's done with. And yes, she did get up Dead Woman's Pass, and she did complete the rest of the trek, and she did see Machu Picchu. So all in all, these moments passed, as they do. Nothing's ever permanent in life, and you think it is at that moment in time. That's what kind of increases the intensity of the experience. But you push through it, because that version of me wanted to keep on pushing, and you get through it. But I guess on reflection, there's a part of me that's kind of, I think regretful is going a bit too far. There's a part of me that, would have liked it to be a slightly different experience, where I was more in the moment. But that didn't happen, and it didn't happen for a reason. So I'm not going to dwell on why it didn't happen too much, but I am going to learn from it. And as I said, there's versions of you, you're not, that's the other thing I've learned over this year, that you're not just, we're 3D, we're obviously three-dimensional, but we've got so many dimensions to us within ourselves, so many different versions of us, and they will show up at different different points in our life. And I think the more aware you become of those versions, the more you're able to really understand yourself and understand why you behave the way you do, why you react the way you do. And once you have that level of awareness, there's more you can do about a situation. So, I'm not saying that if I did this whole thing again, would I have invited more presence and more being mindful into the experience? There's a possibility that could happen, but it could be a possibility that it wouldn't happen, because again, I'm being, like I said, this trek was really, really difficult for me on mainly a mental level. So there's a possibility that I wouldn't be how I'd like to be. But, there'll be other times in my life when I'll feel like I'm really in deep, and having processed and kind of picked apart what happened during the trek, perhaps I'll be more aware of how I'm being and why I'm being that way, and perhaps I'll want to shift of being different, being more accepting of my situation, being more kind, being kinder to myself, and being more loving, not being so pushy, because like I said, there's good parts to that version, which I think we all have within us, but I think there's also parts of it that they miss out these kind of, what I've just mentioned, of being kind to yourself and being loving towards yourself, because you're just so goal orientated, you're so focused on getting through whatever it is, that you're kind of missing the opportunities to be really good to yourself, which is, it's such an important thing in life. To be your own best friend, I think, is really, really important. So yeah, but anyways, I think probably said quite a bit on that front. What I would like to say is that I did still have an absolutely awesome time on this trip. And what else did I say before I was going? Yes, we went to the jungle, we went to the Amazon, and yes, we did see tarantulas. And I think I was okay with seeing them, actually. But the tour guide decided to borrow one of our group members' phones to video the tarantula really up close, ridiculously up close. And so I have a problem with watching that video, because it's just yeah. So in person and at the distance that I was at, I could I bared with the experience of seeing a tarantula. There was no hate there. It was, just, oh, okay, this is what a tarantula does. If you poke its little nest, it will come out and be like, what's going on? So that's what the tour guide did in order to make this video. But yeah, there's no way that I think I could ever watch that video. Ooh, no. So yeah, that was an interesting experience. We also did piranha fishing on that particular part of the trip, which was also quite fun. And I went into fun mode with that particular activity, and there was trying to see if I could, because you had to try and basically get it to feed off of your fishing rod, and the idea was to swing it up once it was snapping on it to get it onto the boat, and then the tour guide would show us the piranha. But unfortunately I never managed to get one to bite and get it up onto the boat, but we did, like, there were other people in the group that managed that, so that was good. Yeah, so there was other elements of it that I really enjoyed, and I think, like, going back to the trek for a moment, I really enjoyed the downtimes that we had. So when we'd finished trekking for the day and we'd come into our campsite, shout out to G Adventures, who we went with, who we organised this part of the trip with, and the Amazon. The hosts, the tour guides, the porters, everyone that basically makes, does the things in the background to make the experience amazing. They work really hard. And yeah, I cannot be more appreciative of their input, because in order for me to have that relaxing downtime, they put a lot in place. So yeah, I thought I'd just give them a quick mention. But yeah, like, I really enjoyed, just once, got over the experience, the trauma of the day, and my aching toenails, because coming down mountains is actually, in my opinion, harder, and that could be something to do with my shoes, because I need to probably look into that, but I found it probably more painful in some respects, coming down. And yeah, so you'd get to your campsite and get out of what you've been trekking in, and I think once I got comfortable, and then we'd go into our little tent and have our dinner, that was the most favourite part of the day for me, where we'd all sit together, we'd all commune together, have our food, have a bit of chat over dinner. And then I was looking forward to speaking Spanish, so that was my first opportunity, really, like, to go into some conversations with the people that were helping us on our trip, so the tour guide and his support that he had. So, like, some of the chats that I was having to practice my Spanish, I really, really, really enjoyed that. Yeah, I do definitely love speaking the language, and I've got to find a way of maintaining that in my life. So yeah, that was really good. We also visited some communities where G Adventures is working in cooperation or collaboration with charities, or like communities that have set themselves up in a way to make an income out of whatever they're doing. So we'd gone to one where they create garments out of alpaca wool, and I'm sure there's other types of materials that they use as well. But yeah, so it was really interesting to see, like, how they operate and how they make their materials and what they use, which is at a more kind of a level that's more in harmony with nature. So they're using more natural products, which was really interesting to find out about. So yeah, we enjoyed those parts of the organised trip as well. So, and the food was absolutely amazing. I was catered for really well as a vegetarian, and in fact I was sometimes served ahead of everybody else, which made me feel extra special. So yeah, came across some dishes that I've never tried before. A lot of them had quinoa in them, so that was a new experience, and I think I'll probably look into some recipes and maybe try and make some of these, but probably won't be as good as what I had there. The avocado out there is just does not compare to what we get over here, even though it's coming from over there. So I don't know what happens in the process of it traveling to us, or whether we're getting our avocados from a different place within the country, but the ones I tried, oh my god, like there was no, because being a vegetarian, sometimes what would happen is, so the meat eaters would get like some chicken or other form of meat on their plate, and my substitute would be, because I needed saturated fats in my diet for the trek, I would be getting half an avocado. But I cannot explain to you, I would choose that over the meat. Obviously, being vegetarian, I wouldn't be choosing meat, but it was just so creamy and full of flavor. Nothing like the ones here. Like, I don't think I've ever had any that taste quite like as they do out there. So yeah, that was a definite highlight of the trip. Yeah, so I think I've covered most of it. And once we'd, like I said in my previous video, we decided as a couple to book a beach resort holiday towards the end, just to kind of recover and recuperate from everything. And that in itself was a highlight, because it turned out that this place that we'd booked was in the middle of like an area of Peru which is known to be a desert, but doesn't get desert-like weather. It's called Paracas, in case anyone's thinking about visiting and is intrigued by this. So the area is called Paracas, and yeah, like it's a desert that's basically there because of the geographical and meteorological interventions. So it wouldn't be there otherwise. And I'm talking about this because I'm kind of like a keen geographer. So that's why I was like super excited when we turned up and we got this tour of the place, and they basically said this is here because of the weather conditions. Yeah, so it's a desert in the tropics, which also attracts penguins. So when you think about all those things, you just go, how is that possible? But it is, because it exists. And yeah, like I said, it doesn't get as hot as your typical desert. When there's quite a bit of kind of wind during the day. So you're kind of standing in the middle of a desert wearing a light jacket, which you just don't expect to be doing. So anyways, I will stop rabbiting on about that, but that was kind of like an unexpected, I'm getting a bit of educational enrichment going on here. So, and it kind of made me think back to my geography lessons and reminisce about how much I used to enjoy some of that. So yeah. So yeah, we finished off there and stayed in this lovely beach resort, just chilled out, had some pisco sours, and after a few days of resting up, we headed back to England. So there was some learning from a couple kind of level, on a couple level, on a relationship level, which I did see it coming, but when you go through the experience, it's sometimes it can be a bit different to how you expect. So, and what I will say is, like, the expectation, it was a good kind of realization, as opposed to, there's nothing negative to really say here, but I felt like during the trek there were probably moments where I didn't feel like, as I said earlier, would be able to finish it. So and who was by my side, who was next to me throughout the whole experience? My husband. I did say to him as well, like, you got to do your own thing, because he walks at a much faster pace than I do. In fact, he was running at points during this trek. So we obviously operate with on a different energy level. And I really wanted him to do it his way as well, but he's not the kind of person just to go, okay, I'm just going to do me, so I'll see you later. He's never been that kind of person, and I shouldn't be surprised by that, but it was a nice surprise for me that he actually stayed by my side throughout the whole blimmin' thing and made sure that, I had this little voice in the background motivating me, telling me that I can do this. And I'm not going to lie, this is going to sound really mean now, but there were probably times where I was just like, oh, that's the last thing I need to hear, like coming from someone who's obviously in their element here. But that's that's not his deal, that's my deal, my projections. And like I said, it's learning for me to be having. So he's coming from a supportive place, and yeah, I really, really appreciated it. Don't worry, I have said this to him, although I think I will forward the video to him as well so he can hear it again, because I'm sure he'd love to hear this message. But yeah, so yeah, like doing this together, from my perspective, doing the trek particularly together, has definitely brought us closer together. But yeah, like, I mean, that's him operating in his strength, and I'd say my strengths were more probably the cultural or maybe the language aspect of the trip. And the fact that I enjoy trying to speak to people and get them to understand me, as opposed to him who, he likes the language, but I don't think he's like, someone who would put themselves out there initially, because I think he wants to learn some before he did that. But because I'm quite up for it, that's where my strengths lie, and I would take over on that front when we needed to communicate with people. But yeah, I don't think he was expecting this trip to be what it was either. And the reason I say that is because he turned around on a couple of occasions and said to me, I'm really glad that we're doing this. And yeah, that meant a lot. So yeah, it was good that it turned out to be more than he expected. Yeah, like I said previously, this was a trip that I had in mind for a very long time. And he has wanted to go to South America, but I don't think he was, going to make it happen like I did, because for me it was a definite urge to go, and to go soon. So I think I guess it was that kind of, okay, now that we're there, and his realization of, I'm really glad that we did come here, because it is an amazing country. There's so many things to see, so many experiences, that yeah, I think it kind of, yeah, blew his mind as well as mine with yeah, everything. And we were there for 2 weeks and 3 days, and I still don't think that was enough. There's plenty more to see, but we ran out of time. But I think whatever we did manage to squeeze in was just, it was just perfect. So yeah, things that have been learnt on that level too. So I think that's probably everything that I wanted to say. I'm sure there'll be maybe things that I'll reflect on again that I may want to pull out and talk about again, but I just wanted to give you an update on how the trip went. And yeah, it's going to be one of those that goes down as being, yeah, trip of a lifetime for sure. one that we won't forget in a rush. But now it's being back at home and thoughts are turning to what I'll be up to for the next couple of months. So I'm starting to think that through, and